Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Nature Folklore Sessions. It's 19th of September, 2021. Well, thank you all for joining me on this weekly time of exploring nature-centered folklore, connecting this within your favorite sanctuary space, and expressing your inspired visions from your sanctuary through your poetry, writing, arts, craft, performance, and problem solving. And now this afternoon it's Apple Folklore and some Avalon stories, and that's the logo I've been using for that. And we're going to be exploring apples, and I got my apple basket out here, so we got some apples that I'll be playing around with. And they're traditions for survival, inspiration, and wisdom. Now, our guests today, they include an introduction to Apple Day in Leitrim. That's happening next Sunday. And I'm also delighted that she's not in the backstage yet, but the very enthusiastic Theresa Gushibor, or Gushy Power, I'll get the pronunciation right. She's of the Clonmel Apple Fest. She was on with us with the Apple Folklore last year, and she'll be very enthusiastic, very interesting. So she'll be back this year to introduce what's happening at the Clonmel Apple Fest. So I hope she makes it okay. And there's also going to be a famous Yeats poem song by Claire Roach. The rest of the time, it's going to be me fitting in what Apple and Avalon stories that I can fit in, and I hope it'll entertain you. And I hope you're seeing me and hearing me okay. The new stuff didn't arrive. It's going around the island. The couriers are kind of dropping the stuff off in wrong towns for the last week. You get notices, misdirection. So eventually we'll get it, but I do have a new t-shirt on. Hopefully I can get some cheaper versions so I can sell them to you in due course. But so thanks very much for the support you got. We got a bit of a threat of a shower. I hope it doesn't mess us up. I've got two coverings on us now, but I've actually got a better covering that's coming in a couple of weeks. But anyway, back to apples. It's something I could go on probably for 2 hours, 3 hours or more with this, but I'll try not to do that today. Now, one major Apple event not included today is the Feeling in Your Community Apple Festival in Clough-Jordan. I only heard about it, so let's see. That's the Apple Day in Rossinla, and then on the left there is the guest that I hope we'll get, the Theresa, and here we go, a nice casual picture of Claire Roach, because actually she's going to be using her folk harp when we get to it. And this is what I've been trying to get to. There you go. This is what's happening in Clough-Jordan today. And it looks like they got the weather today. Much of Ireland has got sun. So it's great for the people that are out and about. So, right, I move from there. Sorry, I'm a little slow. Anyway, the rest of the time, as I say, fitting what I can in. The Nature Folklore Sessions, as I say, I have to bring this up as well. And thank you for the support that you have been giving, because it has helped to make this, well, it will from next week. It'll be a far better kind of show, I think. But the subscriptions help keep this show alive. So thank you, subscribers, and thank you for the support, continued support. Otherwise, I wouldn't be hosting this afternoon. But really, this is a time I like to see who's actually joined us. Today, we got Breezy, the lovely Breezy Kelly, saying good day there. Terlin Fern, good morning from Toronto. Been far too long. Absolutely wonderful, and I trust you will thoroughly enjoy today. And we got Maria Dolnicki, have I got that right, Dolnicki? Also Toronto, and Patricia Rice. Good, it's all Canadians today. Fantastic. Patricia Rice, she's out there from Vancouver Island. So how's the apples out in Canada? That's I imagine you got very good apple harvests over there. I hope you do anyway. I hope it's worked out for you. Anyway, to continue the show on this, oh, Sherry Murphy's just come on board. Lovely. Good morning, everyone from Maine, USA. And it's not everybody, as I say, is from Canada. We have Breezy Kelly. She's up there in Donegal. So we do have some local support. Thank you very much for that. Now, I'll go through some of the stuff a bit like last year, because you've probably forgotten some, and I'm adding stuff this year as well. And the question I ask is, could the apple tree be the tree of life rather than the oak or ash? Now, this and other stories I'm going to mention this afternoon, they're all from my book, Bathing the Fae's Breath. Sorry I couldn't wave one at you. I forgot to bring one out here because I'm in the tree labyrinth here. And I was only just in time to be on the air for you. So take it from the book, and faesbreath.com, which I forgot to put in the banners, faesbreath.com, and that'll get you to how to get the book, or to search any online bookstore. It's bound to be there. Now, the Yggdrasil, many of us know about the Yggdrasil, don't we? The Norse mythological tree of life. It's said to be where the origin of life was born from, and the whole concept of as above, so below. Now, maybe to present this more simply, I like to think perhaps of the tree of life being the creation of the universe, maybe the origin of humanity, and especially the divine gifts of nourishment. And those are the things I'm going to be talking about today. And the Norse tales, they seem to tell us that all life is from the ash tree. I think this is an ash tree. Forgive me if it's not. I just like the picture. The trunk's very sort of ash-like. But the ash tree, especially because of the ash tree's mythological association with water, which we don't hear about so much these days. And then with Celtic tales, it's all about the oak, isn't it? Being our life source. And perhaps because of the sturdiness, the oaks have when they get going and get growing, they have a very deep root. And of course, a lot of people relate to it because of its association to the Druid name, the Druid. So the oak is very important in tales. Now, in some other traditions, they tell of other trees that are the bringer of life to us. So there's always a tree, it seems, in each country, in each mythology. But several traditions tell of life being from the apple tree and its apple fruit. And even if they're golden apples. So I'm going to try and get some golden apples up from you here. Where is it? The apple tree. Where is it? That should do. I will have that one. There we go. There's a few apples on that one, even though they're gold ones. Now, example of apple tree mythology is actually in China, through the Indochina, the Orient, and all the way along the Silk Road, because I probably won't have time today about the origin and the spread of apples, but there was a huge tradition with merchants traveling the Silk Road. They planted apples and they were familiar with grafting, and it's amazing how many species actually are said to have grown along that Silk Road. Anyway, that's a story in itself. And then you got through Eastern Europe. I've been talking about this through the first harvest time, from the Balkans to the Baltic and northwest, so what's now Germany and former Saxon country. And from the Saxon country comes the tradition of wassailing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but we got a special wassailing edition at the end of December. Now, I love the apple tree tradition tales because they often bring in tales and reference to pure and the healing waters springing up from deep below, and often through the apple tree roots, or certainly water gushing up with the roots, the pathway of the roots, and they pour out, and you get wells and so forth. And the water around apple trees, they're told of being the entry points of life-giving entities that come to us to spread life, give protection, and give fertility, the likes of the nymphs, the fairies, the fae, and of course, in Ireland, she. So these tales that are told, I think a lot of people are familiar with classic Greek myth tales of water up through the apple trees in sacred gardens. But these tales are also lingering in Persian and Balkan tales as well. I won't be telling those much. But here in Ireland and Scotland, Wales, through rural England too, we talk of and we have a reflective reference for the fray tree, the rag tree, the cluties that are by the Holy Well. And this is our local one that's got a few there. It's actually a beautiful, clear well, but it was hard to get a picture of the cluties and the clarity of the wells. And some of us might actually call these wishing wells, don't we? As well as healing wells. And we may try to make our wishes firm through leaving a gift like the clutie or a rag. Some odd things to put on the trees. But there's a bit of a harsh tradition that some people feel they have to leave metal on the trees beside these sacred wells. And that tends to be a concern with myself. And sadly, these gifts are too often banged in and they're nailed into the trees. And this is actually in England, but this is a horrible example. Look at that. Now, funnily enough, I did read somewhere that it's a bit of a myth that metal and nails and coins kill off trees, but I find that very hard to believe. And I think, as with most people, it's a very hard thing to believe that there's no harm done. If a tree wanted metal, I think it would have grown with them. So it's a bit of a weird thing, isn't it? Anyway, most people in Ireland familiar with the leaving of wishes of healing through, you can leave a Bridges cross. This is a crafty one. That's quite nice because that would dispose. I think that's on a bit of Hessian there, isn't it? Which is a beautiful way to hang on it. And this is a lovely one. Nice, gentle one that I saw someone left. I think that was at Tara. You know, this is great. Don't put plastic and CD discs and underwear and all these weird things that people put in. Leave your prayers with in a way that they will dissolve into the tree, into the water, and help you to be blessed. And people used to hang apples, believe it or not. I bet you thought it was going to come to that, didn't I? They hung them, the apple trees, crab apple trees, as it used to be in old time. But these days, well, not even much now, but you'd see that more in rural England, especially places like Herefordshire, Somerset, maybe Dorset and Cornwall and parts of Wales. And I think that apples on trees by the wells, that came over with the Saxons. So that's quite a story. Now, I have heard of coins placed into apples that are hung from these sacred wellside trees. I've not actually seen that myself, but if you think about that, hanging apples from a tree, hanging coins from a tree, where have you seen that? Where do you see that? At least once a year for a while. And quite often there's a fairy on the top of the tree. And of course, apples are now replaced with baubles and the coins are made of chocolate. And there's some panic going on saying we should go out and shop for these right now, of course. But I think, a regular apple from your harvest is quite sufficient to hang from your tree rather than those fancy baubles. But that's my opinion of that one. Anyway, I'm going to take a break from Apple Tales here. And I'm going to present my first guest for the afternoon. And first, let's see. I see. Hello, Teresa. I see you're in the background. I haven't got my headphones on. We got Thrisha in the background, so that's fantastic. And Sherry is. I haven't. If you haven't read John's book, oh, nice little reference there. Look at that recommendation there. Thank you so much, Sherry. Very kind of you. Brilliantly written. Oh, goodness me. Now I am blushing from that. Oh, Norway. Look at this. We've got Maria Brand from Asker, Norway. Wonderful. And Joey Sparks. Lovely to have you around from Indiana. Great. Now, as I say, we've got the first guest coming up. So let me get lined up for this because it's quite sweet. It's not a live guest, unfortunately. I tried. But this is from the people who present the Apple Day at the Organic Centre in Rossimba, north of Hamilton, County Leitrim. And I think the best thing is to show you a map to give you an idea where it is, because a lot of people won't kind of. I've got some map picture. I've got a lot of pictures today, so forgive me if it takes a while to find them. There we go. That's the map. Well, there is the map. Yes, there's the map. If you can make sense of where it is from that. Rossimba's in there, and it says Organic Centre is the biggest letters there. So it's next Sunday. It's north of Hamilton, County Leitrim. It's the 26th of September. But unfortunately, I couldn't get any live guests from the centre. But their marketing manager, Dervla Keegan, she sent me an introduction video. So without further ado, let's play the introduction video for you. If I can pass by, this looks like it. Have fun with this. This will show you what they got. So there we have it, the Organic Day next Sunday, the Apple Day at the Organic Centre up there in Rossimba. And Dervla, the marketing manager, it's a shame I couldn't get her on live anyway, I suppose busy. But she sent me a blurb, she's saying, and I've been to it, it's a lovely day out, especially when the weather's good. So I got some photos from when I went there, and I'll show a few of those. And she says there's lots of craft stalls. As usual, food stalls are wonderful, and there's exhibitions in food, wood turning and spoon making, and there's a nod to harvests of the past with demonstrations on making your own corn dolly and harvest nuts, and there's all kinds of family activities and lovely tours around the garden because it's a very big place. And there's tours of the orchard with the experts there, and they're very good actually. They give wonderful advice on grafting and pruning. I love the tour in there. And there's a real Leitrim, that's a Leitrim red apple tree, and they grow very abundant there. A bit bitter for eating, great for the cooking though, great flavour. And of course there's apple pressing. Everybody loves the apple pressing, and that's going on there. And I know that's extremely apple, and you can get it in the bottles. And in their Grasshouse Cafe, it's up for sale as well. And so they have that. And from my visits, they also have local cider makers. I haven't got any pictures. I don't know why I didn't take pictures of the ciders, but they're great. But there's people talking about different species of apples that grow in Leitrim and close by. And there's one there. I think we've got the Leitrim red in there, and there's a few others that actually grow at the Organic Centre. So Leitrim is surprisingly quite an apple county, and it has a few of its own amazing species. I only could show one, I think, in that picture, maybe two. Excuse me. The wonderful Grassroof Cafe, it's going to be open, and they serve wonderful lunches. Let's get your mouth watering. Here's some of the lunches. I love eating there. Well, the lunches have gone away. There they go. And I'm now showing off the cakes there. and there's some more lunch. So that's the Grass Roof Cafe, which is brilliant when it's open. And the lovely thing, and the thing I love doing when I go there, is afterwards go and for an adventure and a walk. It's a beautiful walk. The Foley Falls, that's just a bit of it. I don't know how many waterfalls there are. There's several of them, all on a walk. Absolutely fabulous and majestic. And with this upcoming showery weather, they're going to, at least some of these falls are going to be really running fast. There you go. That's how I can get there. And you can park at a nearby picnic area that's near the falls. Great to park there as well. So I wish there was some online, someone online for you, those of you out of the area. I wish there was some more for you. Anyway, well worth a visit if you're ever in Ireland, to go to the Organic Centre anyway, and the Fowley Falls, if you get to visit Leitrim. It's not a place people get too much, but it's got a lot to offer there in that county. Anyway, let's see what we got. Elizabeth Flynn's on board with us. Greetings from beautiful sunny autumn day in County Wexford. I think most of the country's got the sun. We just have little threatening showers here, but they haven't quite happened yet. And good day to you, Shelley, as well. Lovely to have you on board for this. So let's get into a bit more mythology. The Adam's apple. We'll get on to him in a little bit. We've got to unravel some of this mythology, because did Adam in the Bible's Genesis book actually eat an apple? Now, the Garden of Eden story is told by a few religions. It's not just a Christian one, but for some reason today, why do we regard the forbidden fruit of temptation that it was an apple? And I think that's an interesting story in itself. And I gather the apple was never really mentioned in the Bible, certainly not the earlier versions. So there's an illusion of the apple connection in the fall of man story. And that seems to have become motivated by the 16th century Renaissance painters. I haven't got any paintings of that, but there were paintings that were inspired by the apple trees. And I'm going to explain a bit why an apple would actually inspire a painting in the first place. I think the main inspiration was the Greek mythology, the Garden of Hera. Quite dramatic stories of the apples on the trees there. But the painters, the Renaissance painters, they needed to survive, they needed to eat, they needed shelter, help if they ever got ill. People would feed them, so they didn't get on with the painting and the sculpture. So to make it attractive, it looks as if they took the Greek stories and Christianized them. They just changed it a bit. And so that's how the apple got into the Adam story. And being Renaissance painters, they love to have nude women holding apples. That was a big feature of them. And various male sculpture artists and storytellers seem to also compare the shape of apples to women's breasts. I could go into stories about that, but we've only got an hour, so I'll move on. But also when an apple, let's see if I can do this. Cut an apple along, if you cut this way, if you cut across, a star appears. And I'm going to, there's the camera. No, that way. A star appears when you go that way. You might be familiar, and I'll be talking about that. But when you cut the regular way, as I do that, cut in half here, let's see if it happens here. Not so good. No, I didn't have a decent bit of apple, but that's what I got. If it was a bigger apple, I might get more. But what inspired some of those artists was how that compared to a woman's vulva. And not good. I'm getting a better, shame I haven't got the better camera for you for this. But also of the uterus as well. I got a bit of a picture here that gives perhaps a better idea. And then, interestingly, I've got a daughter-in-law. She was on last year. She's actually called Avalon. And she came up with this interesting drawing inspired by that cut apple here. And this was a drawing she had for last year. So there you go. How the connection comes about. Now, some say this expression comes from male artists after their visions were amplified after they drank cider and maybe mead. And I suppose there's some truth in that as well. But no, I haven't drunk cider or mead before doing this show, so I've just sort of pressed ahead with this the best I could. And even those in the Greek stories, there's, the Greek stories there, they still have a serpent, just like Adam and Eve. I think this is a Greek illustration. And in their garden there, the Garden of Hera, there's a serpent or a snake as well. Now, one rooted theme of the original Greek mythology is that if sacred apples are picked and stolen in the Garden of Hera, all experiences of unconditional love are denied, and they're replaced by desires, temptations, possession, and greed. And together, religions call all of these artists' expressions an indulgence in desire and temptation, and they come up with that one word, sin. So the apple, eating the apple, tempted us into falling into sin, so they say. But by the 16th century, few people could read and write anyway. People relied on learning from art, from sculptures, from visuals. That's how they could, because they couldn't read what had been scribed for them. And that's how they picked up their faiths, their beliefs and stories from what they were told, what they could see, what the artist expressed. So it's amazing how important it is to be truthful and also caring when we express our art. And I think that's one of the things. I think we've got some rain on the way here. I'm going to keep a monitor on that. Anyway, that's what was passed down from parent to children and so on. But from viewing these Renaissance arts, many people, they, trying to get my pictures lined up, they assume that Eve gave an apple to Adam, who was tempted by a snake. And I saw this cartoon recently. There you go. I thought that was quite clever. Anyway, I could probably put together a whole Nature Folklore performance of love stories connecting apples, and how they connect love, inspire love, and enchant love. And they're especially said to be aphrodisiac for men. I love apples, so I don't think it's for me to say in a way. Anyway, let's not forget stories related to cider and mead. And both of those are made from apples and honey. The honey and water as a fermenting base to create the mead. And not far from here, it's going into Roscommon. There is, I haven't got many pictures for this, unfortunately, but there's a place called Orchard Island. It's in the middle of a beautiful loch. It's one of my favorite places in Ireland. It wouldn't be a place on tours or tour guides. I just love the place. And I'm going to have to keep this story short, but there is a Beltner gathering. And there was this Scottish bard, Finn, because there was at Beltner, there was kind of peaceful tribal gatherings that happened to try and maintain the peace and prepare for the trading that was about to happen by the time we were getting into first harvest. And but Finn, which actually means bard around Scotland and also in parts of Ireland as well, he took an attraction to Lasir. And Lasir was a sort of a goddess figure who was actually a daughter of the chieftain, but was seen to be half goddess. And I forget the chieftain's name, but she lived on Orchard Island. And so in order to woo her, he turned up with what was called the Rose of Sweetness. And when it was planted, it never wilted. And the bees could forever get pollen from it. So it kind of lived forever. And she had beautiful golden hair. He gave her a comb for her hair. I gave her a third gift, and I've totally forgotten it right now, so sorry about that, but it's not relevant to what I want to tell about this story. Anyway, Lasir wasn't really taken by these advances by Finn. Yeah, he was a nice singer, but she didn't trust him. He seemed like a bit of a crook. And but he actually started showing her with her apple crop, because he kept wooing her. And then by the time it was apple harvest, he started mixing the apples with the honey. And he made this sort of concoction. And he would visit her just before sunset each day. And they would share a drink together, and he would try and woo him. No, 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 I'm not interested. And this went on for 14 days. And of course, after the 14th day, she was totally enamored. And that was it. He had his way, and there was all sorts of stories. And there you have, folks, one of the stories of the origin of the honeymoon, the 2 weeks from the new moon to the full moon, which is when Finn served the honey and the apples and honey to Lazir. For the 14th. I didn't tell that very well, did I? I kind of got mumbled. Anyway, apples or something made with apples seems to be in several stories of temptation, and they're accompanied with some belief of achieving mortality. Let's think Sleeping Beauty is one of them, isn't it? It's probably the best known. When Snow White was lured into eating the poison half of the apple that the witch was eating. And within these apple temptation stories, it's, oh dear, sorry, they've got tech fault going on. Anyway, I'll try and catch up. It's within these apple temptation stories, it's our surrender to curiosity that really, in a way, it seems to lead us to pain, to sorrow, to greed. But all of that is us learning how to be human, isn't it? And there are lovely apple stories about apples inspiring imagination and wisdom. So it's not all bad. It's not all difficult. And to try and correct what was going on the screen here, apples were used as gifts for teachers. That's something we know quite well, isn't it? There we go. There's, I think you can make it out on that. Apples for teachers. Yeah, the tech thing hasn't stopped. Sorry. Okay, I got screen problems. Come on, there it goes. There's the gifts for teachers, and thank them and encourage them to share more of their inspiring wisdom. So that's a pupil's supposed to be a pupil's appreciation, and thank them. And please, can I have more of your wisdom, because I love it so much. And have you ever? How are you inspired? Do you find that? Come on, picture. It's there we go. Are you ever inspired when you bite into and chomp into a lovely, juicy, crispy apple like that? Look at that, fresh picked, and there you go. Total inspiration. I can give up for the pictures for a minute and see what you're saying. There we go. Someone's asking something. Breezy, have you heard of the apple tree man? That's yeah. The apple tree man seems to be fairly modern concoction. Wait until I get to the Green Man stories again, although I will be a while before I get to them. Anyway, Kate, yeah, is Kate here? We hope she'll join in. She will at some point. But the apple tree man, there's a lot of people have invented variations. Oh, sorry about the throat today. A lot of people have invented variations of the Green Man, and as I point, sorry, I can't get rid of this. A lot of people have kind of done variations of the Green Man stories ever since the first actual Green Man story came out in 1888, wasn't it? I think by Lady Somerset, and I went to that. So they got variations. The Celtic Romantics came up with ideas, but there was a lot of an acceleration on variations of the Green Man after Glastonbury got very popular from the early 70s. And then, of course, with the social media, people are inventing all kinds of local celebrations from what they pick up from journals and stuff from the past. So that's as far as I'll go with the Apple Man. But certainly give me a few... explain, Breezy, where you experienced the Green Man, and I probably missed something there. It'd be very interesting. Thank you. But I talked to Glastonbury, so let me start on some Avalon stories, because I said this is going to include Avalon stories. And first, there we go. That's actually Orchard Island on a dull day on Lochmela. And because there's various apple orchard islands around from Neolithic, Megalithic, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and from medieval times, there've been all kinds of stories of apple tree islands. So that's Orchard Island on Lochmela there, and the rose of sweetness and that ritual for the honeymoon. And Avalon in Somerset And this is go to the logo. There you go. Glastonbury tour with the apple trees down below. And it's known to millions of people. Well, Glastonbury tour certainly is. And Avalon is said to be Glastonbury tour anyway. And Avalon is believed in being a place of divine joy. I think that's the simplest way of putting that. And Avalon is known as being a place of apples, just by its actual name. And this name seems to have come from a Welsh word, Afal, A-F-A-L. And how the Afal word got to Wales is quite a story too. Now, Afal is somewhat related to I talked about the Saxons coming over. They have a word in Germanic and Saxon areas formerly as F-E-L. And there's a temptation right now to move into Arthur and Merlin stories. So I'm just going to give you a wee picture because I'm not going to spend time talking about that. But I think you'd like me to talk about the creation of Avalon more. I would like to share that a bit more anyway. So what I did not tell you about the orchard island of Lochmela, let's show this up again, give you a bit of a vision of it. It looks tiny, but it's the story of how the orchard island was created. I told the story of Finn and Lazia. That's after it was created, but the creation of this island was due to some of the deeds. It's included in the deeds of the Tuatha De Danann. And this is part of the tales of the sons of Turin, Tuirean. And these were sons of the half Tuatha De Danann and half Fomorian Brez, who quite a famous sort of leader, deceptive leader of the Tuatha De Danann. And he had a wife that was called Bridget, assumed to be named after the goddess Bridget. But I'm not going to the naming now. But a fuller and older name of Bridget, whichever way you go, the Brina Syed, there's all kinds of variations. What you come down to is a description of the fiery arrow. And that's the ancient term for lightning, because they didn't seem to have a word for lightning. They had to describe what it was. Now, Turin, from the same age, that's a translation that you can boil it down to meaning thunder. So these three sons were the sons of thunder from the lightning bolt woman of Breda. And that's as far as I'll go with that before I get too far away from apples and Avalon. Though I've not seen it in text, it does seem that these sons of Turin were more in allegiance with the Fomorians along with her father, because the deeds they did that are recorded were always against Tuatha De Danann folks, especially the brothers Cian, Dagda, and Oma. And they killed Cian, and that's quite a horrible story. And Cian was the biological father of Lu. And after the killing of Cian, when Lu became High King of Ireland, he actually caught the three sons and he sentenced them for various tasks. So there's a real saga of how they went off to do those tasks. Anyway, I'm getting too far away from the apples. So let's get back to the deeds of these menacing sons of Turin. What they did was they stole Dagda's cauldron of plenty. And it seems they did this at the time of year around about now. So Dagda's cauldron was not long after the first harvest, and it was overflowing. So they tried to run away with it. The three of them trying to, with this great cauldron, it's just heavy and heavy as it's actually overflowing as they go. And there's Dagda, bigger than them, thundering along, and he was catching up with them. So they threw Dagda's cauldron into Lochmela, and the overflowing from the cauldron quickly created the fertile island that is now Orchard Island in Lochmela. So let's bring it up to applause that one. There you go. That they say under that is Dagda's cauldron, and that's what formed the island. Also, the composer Bartolo Carolan, he's buried close to Lochmela too. And there's a crannog on the other end of Loch that's said to always have had a linnet, and he would try out his tunes. And if the linnet sang sweetly, then the tune was approved. If it croaked, then he dumped it. Anyway, Glastonbury Avalon has a story of being formed too, very similar. And that's when a cauldron of plenty was stolen too, and it was thrown into the lake. But this cauldron of the Avalon story starts with a sacred gift of a cauldron of plenty that was given to Bran the bard. So that's a Welsh bard this time. And this cauldron, it was seized by Brenthus, he was a charioteer in Welsh and Western England legends, who would take the souls of the dead back to the other world. So Bran's sacred gifted cauldron, it fell off Brenthus' chariot, and the story tells that Bran's cauldron fell into a lake, a massive lake, and this was a lake that entered into the other world anyway, much like Loch Nessor, which is also near here, and that's where Balor's Eye fell and went through to the other world. But within this lake that the cauldron fell into, like the Orchard Isle, it continued to grow, just like the Douglas Cauldron story. And as it overflowed, the contents quickly rose high above the lake, and then you got the grand fertile island where an abundant orchard grew. Let's bring this one back again. Oh, let's bring the mystical one. There you go. There's the island growing up out of the lake, out of the mist. I think that's a more appropriate picture for this. And also, Avalon, like our local orchard island, it had the presence of a goddess too, Ceridwen, who was wooed by a bard called Tegid. And also Avalon, like our local orchard island, as I say, wooed by Tegid. But she actually lived with 4 sisters, not by herself. And they all gave Tegid a really hard time, all 5 of them. And they were forever testing his honor to his truth and loyalty to Ceridwen as he was trying to woo her. So the Avalon goddess, Ceridwen, and the heavy task, that's quite a story. I won't go any further with that. But it says she was a goddess of nature and transformation through winter. So her story is very similar to Ireland's own stories of the Morrigan or the Morna Coracuen, which I deal a lot with through further sessions. So Tegid was tested for his loyalty, and his loyalty was to his application to the earth, its seasons, and all life. Now, I love the saying I once heard was, an apple a day inspires a bard to play. Let's have another apple up. There we go. I got plenty of apples here. Inspires the bard to play. Now, in folklore, eating the first apple symbolizes becoming human. And I love this as a first apple. Just eating that, you become human, and you become filled with human emotions. That's what the whole mythology in these stories seems to be about. And a bard is said to serve the 3 strains, the 3 trees, through the music and words, to perform for our emotions, and even to not so much control, but flow with them. So the bard performs strains of sorrow, joy, and sleep. And sleep is better known as the dreaming. Now, there doesn't seem to be any she-bards. They all seem to be male bards in these ancient tales. And I believe that Avalon is very much symbolic of the dreaming. So let's bring that picture up again, if it'll allow me. There you go. That's very much a dreaming Avalon, isn't it? And there is a mythology story that tells the inside an apple, once you bite in the actual inside of an apple, it's a conduit between our world, the other world, where dreams travel to, and they are actually responded to. And it's said that within the apple fruits, it's where the she-horses, the Capel-Shiga, they travel between the 2 worlds. Literally, this is how a folklore story gets wild, isn't it? There's no dimensions, no such thing as distance and time. So inside the apple fruits, there you go. You have the world of the she-horses traveling between the 2 worlds. So this is why eating apples is said to inspire us with revelations that manifest through our waking days. Now, some fairy stories, they tell of demons and evil people, don't they? A lot of them do, especially the Grimms. I mean, Grimms literally sometimes are grim. They really turn around a fairy story to scare children. But imagination from these stories reveals the dark side of our dreams. So there is a purpose there. But what I do is I suggest we do not accept them as fears, but we surrender to them. And there's various tales I tell through the year of the nature folklore of examples such as the otters off of Sligo coast is one story that I bring up. Now, if we surrender to peace, it's said that the dark veils reveal light. They open up, they reveal the light, and this is the light of our dreams that guides us. So to me, that sums up what the whole mythology, the whole folklore, the whole search, the whole curiosity, the whole connection to Avalon is all about. And involved in this are visions of that we have from that simple task of biting into a nice crisp apple. And there's one from the harvest recent. And by taking that bite, are we sent into the visionary world of revelations? I just love it. You know, you bite into, I think I'll do a demonstration. I might clear the throat. Something. You do a bite, and you didn't see it, but the spray and that fragrance, it really sort of hits you. And now I've got to swallow this thing, haven't I? They're taking you into the realm of Avalon, a space where the spirit within the apple, it takes us. So there I am, after biting into the apple, into a realm of Avalon. So hopefully we'll get to talk to Threesha, even though I'm away with the fairies. So this spirit is said to be strongest at one time, and many people call that Halloween. So protection through Samhain, Halloween, there's still places that encourage the tradition of children being sent to bed with an apple for the night. And then I haven't got any apple pillows, but this is a lovely phrase related to that. Put the places under the pillow, and the children are said to be protected from bad dreams and troublesome spirits. So an apple under the pillow at any time is said to enhance good dreams, gives protective dreams, inspiring dreams, and very loving dreams. Now, before I leave this subject, I love the story of the apple fruits having a trinity of colour, and I did find a lovely one that has all those three colours. Look at that. Green, the colour of birth and our infancy. Yellow for its maturing like the sun across the sky, and red for the sun as the apple sinks into its own sunset at the time of apple harvesting. And I think it's going to happen today. Now, within my Bathing in the Phase Breath book, there's Omer's Tale of the Trees. And within that, there's a section, there's poems. There's poems for the whole alphabet in there. But there's one that's called Quirt the Apple. And it really sort of covers all that I've just said. And if it will behave, where is it? I've lost it. There we go. There's Quirt. It's funny, it just shut up the screen. I'm not going to be shut. I'm not going to shut Quirt the Apple. Anyway, there it is. It's Quirt the Apple. And Claire Roach has composed some lovely, jolly and enchanting harp music that goes with my poem for this. But unfortunately, we've not made a very good recording of it yet. So it's a little disappointing I can't share that with you. But what I can do for a moment, and we're shortly going to have Threesha on from Clonmel. But here it is. There's me. This is Quirt the Apple with just me, without Claire, unfortunately. But I hope you enjoy it. It's not a great video, but it gets the sense of it. Did you know that within every apple there lies something waiting to surprise? Now, instead of cutting down, slice through and watch a star appear for you. At harvest time each day on my ladder, I reach closer towards the sky, picking apples, filling barrels for mead, for cider, and of course to make apple pie. But I am done with the apple picking for now. Time for winter sleep that no longer nights allow. The scent of the apples calms me and calls me. What will my dreaming allow me to be? In that twilight before sleep, I can see apples appear and disappear, every one with perfect skin. Aye, this was the great harvest we all desired, to nourish us through the winter but oh, I'm now tired. But there are voices singing. Apples, apples, look, here's our treat. Big and small, and they're all good to eat. One side red, the other side green. Russets and coxes all washed clean. But where are the crab apples? Well, they're still out in the wood. Bitter for the big folk, but for us they're quite good. So come all ye, let's gather them up, make jelly with honey and mead for us to sup. And from that mead we'll reveal stories of darkness to light, monsters who became angels to guide us through the light. Night. A poet once visited, told us of his longing, seeking for the dream, his desire for courting. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone, and kiss her lips and take her hands. We walked with him among the long dappled grass, and plucked till time and times are done those silver apples of the moon and the golden apples of the sun. And through a moment's smile, he shared more wisdom with us for a while, peering above his spectacles steamed as we giggled, burped and beamed. But there is that tree, with the leaves so green, and here are the apples that hang in between. And if I picked these two apples, do you know what I would do? I would shine them up, and I'll give one to you and one to you. So there we go. Quote the apple, and it's not disappearing. Okay. Thank you. Oh. All right. Here we go. Now I think I can clear it. That's fantastic. Thank you. And a lovely comment came in from Myra Steva here. Thank you for the apple stories. It warmed my heart on the day when I was feeling down. So I hope that worked for a few of you there, because I won't go into it, but I was sort of struggling to do this broadcast today anyway. And Breezy enjoyed that. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. But I'll move on very quickly here, because there's another lovely Apple Festival in Ireland next weekend. That's the Clonmel Apple Fest that's in Tipperary. And that's... is that the right one? Yeah, there's the posters. That's the literature that's going for that one. And Tipperary is a wonderful county for apple growing, very famous for it. Because Bulmers there, they use 17 different local apple species just to make their ciders. And the Bulmers themselves have got 8 different brands of cider that they make there in Clonmel. And the only other cider brand that's not Bulmers I know from the area is Longways, and that's from Carrick-on-Suir, which is on the way to Waterford. But there must be more. Anyway, last year we shared a delightful and enthusiastic interview with Lynn Mather and Theresia Gushchibauer. If I got that right, I wonder. I'll find out in a minute. But anyway, I'm going to get Theresia to update us on what's happening on this year's fun-packed Clonmel Apple Fest. So hello to you then, Thesia, and thank you for being back with us, and thank you for the patience of waiting on just to Apple Fest this year. So what's happening in Apple Fest? What are the great highlights of this wonderful day next week?
Hello, John. Thank you. It was fascinating to hear your stories, and really, you're the expert on apples, it seems, and legends and stories. Fascinating. That's so much to learn, and so much. I could never remember all these stories. I loved listening to them. So we actually started Apple Fest because of the place that is Clonmel, which does have Bulmers and it does have Longways. It also has corn cider from the Apple Farm. The Apple Farm, which was founded 50 years ago by a Dutch couple who came to Ireland specifically to grow apples. And so they were quite a pioneering family, and their son is now running the Apple Farm, Con, and he makes cider as well. A lovely, lovely man who's been a great supporter for us. And so because of this place that is Clonmel and the abundance of apples, we decided that really we should claim the name of apple capital of Ireland while it was still available. Well, Armagh, I think, has claimed it for the Norse, but in the south, nobody has yet. So, so we're really interested in more. I mean, the apple is very much just a symbol, just like you were telling all these stories where the apple comes in and represents, sin or the female vulva, or so many different things, the heart, the eye. We use the apple as a way as a prism to explore lots of different themes and issues, and using lots of different art forms to connect people. I think that's really what we're interested in, is connecting people through the medium of storytelling, of heritage, of nurturing our sense of place. And this year our caption is our sense of place and indigenous. So one of the things we're doing is we're going to inaugurate a harvest festival. Now, I think
lovely.
it's going to be quite a harvest procession, I should say. Sorry. It's going to be very modest because with all the COVID stuff, we actually didn't know whether we'd go ahead with it. And to some extent, we're still finding our feet. But we have a little troupe of people that are going to go ahead and do a small procession. And we're bringing actually a small coracle, one of those circular boats made with...
Very good.
And we actually made this with local hazel and willow. And we've been collecting grief messages from people. Like, we had a heritage event during Heritage Week, and we were asking people to write grief messages because we felt, the last year and a half has been, quite an intense time for lots of people. And for a lot of people, they were, not only did they lose beloved ones, but they also didn't get to grieve them properly. And I think in Ireland, that's a significant part of social life is grieving and going to funerals and sharing the grief. And I've never really realized how important and how significant funerals were until I came to Ireland. And I really must say and confirm that Irish people do the best funerals ever.
And it's amazing that it's beautiful how you've incorporated the apples, brought it into the festival. It's not going to be exactly a mourning, but there's going to be some joy with that. And it relates with some of the, with the stories I've been saying. And you're wrapping this all up into the festival. I wish I had advanced photographs. That would have been stunning. But what a beautiful thing you're doing there. Fantastic.
Well, the thing is, mourning is part of harvesting, because as you're taking from the land, you're taking away. So you're to some extent killing, and that's part of going into the winter time. It's part of the season that it's cyclical, and going into the winter, we're going into the dark phase, and then the spring will come back, and the seeds will rise again. So but there will be a merry side to it, and we have indeed a little raucous troupe of musicians, revelers, festival revelers, who will come along with the coracle, and we're going to send the coracle on the river with the messages, and then we'll parade back into town cheerfully with song and dance and so on. So that's actually the finale of our event on the Sunday, but on the other, and that's book ended on the first day. On the Thursday with an event where we're actually launching a book which we've been writing with 14 local writers have been interviewing 14 non-nationals, a lot of them non-Europeans who now live in Clonmel. And so we were exploring, how does it feel for them to live here, and what do they appreciate and what do they miss. And it was just a way of connecting people who don't naturally come together. So again, and then we have the Apple and Heritage Day on Saturday, where we have apple pressing and apple sampling, and we'll have the seed savers there to tell us more about all the different varieties. And then we have art making, where we'll be making woolen apples, and we'll have a tree where you can hang them, and we have
wonderful.
And various harvest displays as well, and sampling of local foods and such, because it's very much about supporting the local and celebrating the place that is Clonmel. And Clonmel means the valley of honey, or the vale of honey. So it's a lovely association, the apples and the honey and the bees. And so we explore the whole theme of biodiversity and ecology, and what it is to really cherish that. And I think it's a good time for it, after this year and a half where we really got a lot of time to look around and to cherish the place we lived in. I hope that we'll gain additional support thanks to that.
That's because last year we was talking about the wassailing, and that's the wrong time of year for the wassailing, but to actually introduce the idea. And now you're talking about the coracle. That really is to the point of this year. So I won't say, are you going to do the wassailing, because I think that'd be an intrusion. So
we'd love to. We'd love to.
I think that could be for next year for you, because that whole heart of that coracle idea, I think that is so beautiful, so fantastic.
Yeah. I think the idea is that we're starting this group of artists and festival revelers, and this is very much the first stage of it. And if it goes well, we might very much look at doing a wassailing event. In fact, I think I've mentioned it to Con at the Apple Farm, and we might do one in the spring, in early spring or late. Often I think it's
January.
in mid-January, before the end of the winter, before we go into the spring, really.
I'm gonna talk a little bit about wassailing or wassailing, because obviously it comes from the word or the greeting wassail, the Saxon Germanic term. But I will talk a little bit about it, but because it's not fixed on that mid-January so much anymore. So that's starting. And I wish we had. Obviously, you can't have videos in advance, but I'm really looking forward to when you're posting the photos and videos of the coracle, because that is so precious. That's brilliant. Anyway, aside from the coracle, you've mentioned some of the fun stops, the heritage. Anything else we've missed out about next Sunday for the Apple Fest?
Well, we're trying to we're doing a food challenge, amongst other things, to encourage people to share their food, and we'll have a community picnic next Sunday, where we're inviting people to enter the food in a competition, but also then to share it with all the other people who turn up on the day. So it's going to be very much an impromptu event, and we'll see who turns up, but wish us well on the weather, because that's going to be quite crucial. And it's going to take place in the grounds of Old St. Mary's, which is this beautiful green space in the middle of town, which is somewhat underused. And in fact, this year, because of that, we actually bought a sculpture we installed a sculpture in the grounds, and that sculpture is called Brave, and it's a rush sculpture of a horse with a young woman atop, because we were looking at the whole idea of what is bravery. And I suppose, looking at Lou and the harvesting of, traditionally it's on top of a horse, it's usually a man and a warrior or a soldier or someone who likes to fight. So we were looking at the whole idea of, what does it mean to be brave today? Who would you put on top of the horse? And we asked that question to various TY students, transition year students. in secondary schools in Ireland and asked them who would they put on the horse. And we actually didn't get that many names as such, but one came first resoundingly, and that was Greta Thunberg. So, and when we asked why, it was, because she puts her neck out and she stands up to powerful people, and she doesn't she's not letting herself be intimidated. So that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of bravery to do this, and to really, and a strong sense of belief in your mission, in your vocation.
Definitely. Now I'm going to have to, unfortunately, you're talking about the weather. We're suddenly hit by a heavy shower. I haven't got that great cover, so I'm just keeping an eye on it just in case I have to shut down very quickly. I hope I don't. But anyway, the weather, it's a shame because usually this is a rough weekend, and for most years the next weekend is usually the brilliant one. But as you say, there is supposed to be wind on Thursday and Friday, and it will be umbrella time. But I think with the coracle, that will add to the symbolism. So everybody dress up and get to Apple Fest in Clonmel. Let's get the this is where you'll find out what's going on. We should do anyway. There you go. And get along to clonmelapplefest.ie. See what's going on. Absolutely wonderful to have you again. It's always too short and I'm too long. But wish you a beautiful time next week. It sounds excellent. And I'll try and post some advanced pictures when you put them up on your Facebook group, because there is a Clonmel Apple Fest Facebook group, everyone. So fantastic. Have a wonderful time, Theresa. I got to quickly rush through to finish off before we get flooded here. And that was lovely to have you. Thanks very much, and bless you for all that. Thank you for Apple. There we go. Thanks.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Brilliant. Yes, we are suddenly being hit by a heavy shower. I'm going to have better cover here. It's on the way. I've got 2 layers of cover, but they say waterproof, and that's not always the case. And I've got quite a few computers spread out here, so I can't mess that up. We'll not have anything on, will we? Now, the origins of our apples came to us. That was something I wanted to talk about, and how apples spread around the world, how they developed from the crab apples. I wanted to talk about that. No time for that. There's the temptations of the white goddess or the white hag, who's usually Grania, Onya, Bera, or Boan. It's not the white goddess that's adapted differently for the Wicca people. And there are stories of those tempted by the goddesses, such as Conla on Ushnak, and there was Ocean on Tara. But I think I can save a bit of time to share a bit about the beautiful. We were talking about this with Theresa, the ritual of wassailing or wassailing from wassail. I didn't have time to put pics up for you for this one, so I'm just going to sort of give you a bit of verbals on it because it's not really wassailing time anyway. It's because it's Apple Fest time. And in short, wassailing was the blessing, or is the blessing, of apple trees to pray that they yield many apples for the next harvest. Now, the origin of this folklore is said to be Saxon, and I'd love to be able to tell you the story of how, I will, end of December, how I ended up at a festival in East Germany, original sort of Saxon area, and taught the people how to do wassailing, which was a lovely experience. Anyway, brought over to Britain when they arrived. The Saxons arrived in Britain 4th century, and some stories say that the Saxons didn't invade. They were actually invited by some of the tribes, the Britain tribes, in the same way that Leinster, they invited the Normans over. A similar sort of thing. So some of these Britons, though they were related to the people who were in Wales and Scotland and Cornwall, very much that same Celtic, as you say, tribal thing. They wanted more power or something. They wanted more control of the fertile crops. So the Saxons were invited over. But when they came over, I don't think they liked the offer by the Britons. So they ended up having more allegiance to the tribes of what's now Scotland, and even with Ireland, because the reason being is south of Scotland and Ireland, especially southeast Ireland, they had advanced skills in apple orcharding, and they'd share these skills with the Welsh and the Cornish and the Somerset. And that's why, in a way, the tradition and heritage of apples is so much in the southwest of England, because of this change of allegiance by these Saxons, I think. And some of those Welsh became Scottish tribes eventually anyway. But wassailing, traditionally, as we were talking about, held on the 12th night of Christmas according to the Roman Julian calendar. And today that'd be 17th of January, according to what we use, the Gregorian calendar that we use today. But the 12th night used to be the 17th. Julian had everything all very different. The Gregorian's not really that much better anyway. But that date may not have been a fixed date. 17th of January might not have been fixed until well into the 7th century. And that was 300 years since the arrival of the Saxons into Britain. And this is when the Saxons became more Christian, I suppose you would say. They became very involved in monastery creation, scribing, education. And so the Saxons then followed their customs and traditions alongside the Roman Christian ways. And they started adapting Roman-style dates to their traditions. And that's how it became January the 17th. By wassailing or wassail, it looked like it was a different time, but unfortunately, we don't know what their time was before the 7th century. Anyway, how and when Saxons and other people bless their apple trees, that's changed a lot. And since blessing the apple trees with wassail to the branches, there's a verse to the branches, a verse to the roots, and then a verse to bless the people present around the tree. So it became aligned to the Christian dating, and they kept it going until the Puritans evolved, and they didn't like wassailing. So the Puritans tried to get rid of the wassailing and all those old Saxon traditions. And then that got dissolved a bit, and there was a revival in the 17th century and the 18th century. And with this revival, wassailing wasn't strictly 17th of January anymore. They started doing what was convenient to the community. And there was Clonmel Apple Fest. They might well be doing it next week for wassailing. Anyway, those celebrations, those wassailing celebrations faded away yet again until there was a grand revival during the huge revival of British folk music, British folk traditions. There was a huge revival that started going on from the early 70s. And local wassailing celebrations started to spring up everywhere again from the 70s. And they happened all at different times. It could be at the harvesting time, like now in some areas, to all sorts of times up until the middle of January. And the versions of the wassailing tradition, they're now spreading through Scotland and also through the south and east of Ireland. So this is what's spreading. People love the idea of blessing the apple trees. So that's all I'm going to say about wassailing today. And I'm going to do a lot more about wassailing on a special edition at the end of December. But we got one more guest. Have you got any more comments? One more guest before we go, because I did say there's one more. No, we're well into overtime. But first, coming up in Nature Folklore sessions coming up. Next week, we're going back to the Orm series, and it's Orm Stones. And someone's been asking questions about this already. 4th of October, it's the start of 6 weeks of Samhain Sunday sessions. And this one is a new one, Hubble Bubble, Witches and Ale. A little bit related to today. And then we've got on the 10th of October, we have Fire Dragons, Serpents and Snakes. So there's a lot of graphic stories about that. So as I say, the last guest of the day, it is a video. And normally it's Claire Roach. And normally she does this on her concert harp. But this was actually beside Lochmela, believe it or not. Well, yeah, I do believe it. And she was performing for a group with a little Irish harp. And this is the Song of the Wandering Angus that does refer to apples.
went out to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry in the thread. And when white moths were on the wing, and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in the stream and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame. Something rustled on the floor, and someone called me by my name. It had become a apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name, ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering to hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone and kiss her lips and take her hand. And oh, come on, long dappled grass, and pluck till time and times are done. The silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun.
Oh, thank you, Claire Ocean. Sorry about the crackles. And it was actually raining there that time. It's actually pouring with rain here, so I've got to close off very quickly. Do ask any questions before we go, but I'm going to escape the rain before the equipment's messed up. Thank you again. Amazing guest today. Video from the Organic Centre, Leitrim. The Trisha Gushbauer of the wonderful Clonmel Apple Fest. And then we had Claire Roach. Apple Festivals next year at the Organic Centre and Clonmel. Oh, the rain is really starting to come through now. If you're watching this, watch it as an archive. Please keep commenting. I do return from time to time. Enjoy a safe week, full of the wonder and inspiration and enchantments, especially if you're eating apples. And so until we meet next week, any comments from anyone before I go? I'll answer the comments when I get into the cottage in a moment. So until next Sunday, thank you all for joining us. It's been fun, despite a few things going on, and lots of fun. It always is on Sunday. So until next Sunday, play well. That's all I have today. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye. Fabulous week to you. Bye.